Welcome in, everybody, to my latest live broadcast. My name is Carey Holzman. Today is the 15th of May, 2020. It is Friday. Yes, it is Friday. And the reason I know it's Friday is because everything's back open again. Well, not everything, but the governor in Arizona has permitted most businesses to reopen using appropriate social distancing and cleaning. So restaurants are letting people dine in again. Bars are letting people back in again. And things are just now starting to return to normal. Some business owners are choosing to wait, while others are very small businesses, and the social distancing requirements and cleaning requirements, like there's a little restaurant, they don't have enough room in there to have more than 5 people dining. It's not worth it to them to open their dining room back up. They just keep doing takeout. So it's for each business owner to decide on their own how they want to handle it here in Phoenix and in Arizona in general. And we'll see how that progresses. If things continue good, then the opening will expand. And if things get worse, we'll probably be retreating back. So we'll find out as that progresses along during this COVID-19 crisis we're amongst. I mention that again for historical purposes, as these videos that I make are up for years and years and years. So looking back on this and living in the center of the storm may be potentially useful or even nostalgic for those of us living through it, looking back on it. Excuse me. I've got a review I'm going to do today. I was going to do another build today. However, I'm going to postpone that because I've got 4 items on my review list and I want to crank through them. And I'm only going to do one today because it's, I think, as I started to put this video together this afternoon, I was thinking about what I wanted to cover. I realized I've got enough content here to make this its own individual video. And so today, what I'm going to be talking to you about is this Seagate one-touch solid-state drive that is USB. And this is 1 terabyte of storage that's very, very fast, very reliable, very durable, and it sells for $139.99. So let me get it open, and everything you see on my channel is live and unscripted. So I have no idea, without any rehearsal, without any sort of concept of expectation, I try to emulate what you guys as a consumer will do when you're shopping and you make impulse purchases, or perhaps, we don't research everything we buy. Most of us don't. Something looks good, you buy it. And then you open it up and you figure it out, and the instructions typically go to the side until you need them. That's how it is with everybody I know. So I try to emulate real life here by simply being real and recording it. So I'm going to cut the tape on this. I think this was brought to my attention through some advertisement on Slick Deals or something, but it wasn't on sale. $139.99 is the regular price for this. And I'm fascinated with storage. I don't know why, I just love everything storage related. It's just my thing, I don't have to tell you. Flash drives, M.2 drives, NVMe, SATA, IDE, SCSI, RLL, MFM. Sorry, Tim Allen kind of took over me there. Here I've got instructions, nothing else in that box. There's a little USB cable that fell out right there. Oh, this is a lot smaller than the box. Look at that. That's welcome. I like to see it as small as possible. Wow. For some reason, I was thinking this is about the size of a deck of cards based on all the pictures. And again, the size of the box. But, and I don't know what the deal is with this little tag, like a t-shirt might have. That's kind of weird. I could do without that little tag. There's your USB plug on the side. And to give you some concept of size, this is the knife you see me flip open all the time. And This is a standard USB flash drive. So it's about the same length as a USB flash drive and about 4 times as wide. And coincidentally, 4 times the storage. That USB flash drive was 256 gigs. This is 1 full terabyte or 1,000 gigabytes. So this should be a real easy thing to test, but it opens up sort of a Pandora's box of questions, which I'm going to get to. Hang with me here, and we'll get through this pretty darn quick. Now, there are links to Seagate's website for different versions of this. There's like artistic versions of it with drawings for people. It's got like a little fabric piece over it. I guess that's something for people who care. And there's different colors, and they go through the different, some software is included with the purchase of this. Software that I won't use, but it may be something interesting for you. This is really aimed, I guess, at photographers who need to stash a lot of photos on the go. Though with SDXC, those little tiny memory cards, getting so large in capacity, I'm not quite sure how important external storage is to photographers these days. However, photographers are often not using their cell phone to shoot, but rather cameras shooting in RAW mode, where you might be taking multiple shots at a given time. So I'm now retracting what I just said and realizing, yeah, I guess photographers probably still need this. Okay, so I'm just going to plug this in. And for this test, I wanted to use the best, most capable system that I have available to bench. And that's the AMD 3950X. I've already got it powered on. It's ready to rock and roll. And I'm just going to switch my camera over to input 2, which is the desktop of this 3950X. And you'll see that because I've got the properties open. Oh, it went to sleep. Hold on, let me wake it up. There it is. So you can see this system has 64 gigs of RAM. It's an AMD 3950X. Everything's cool. It's happy. Right? We're all on the same page. Now, I guess I need to plug in. Hold on, I should bring up my other camera and just kind of stick it in the corner so you can watch what I'm doing and won't be so surprised by the desktop. Wrong one. Camera 1, thank you. And we'll put that right about there. Ought to be good. Raise it up and over a little bit. So I'm going to take this and plug it into one of the blue USB ports here on the back of this computer. Those should be the fast USB 3 ports. You'll see the inside of that is blue as well. So we'll line up blue to blue. And there should be no drivers or software needed. We'll just plug it in. It should auto-detect it. And you can see it immediately comes up with some programs that are included with the device. And I'm not going to go through all that. Generally, when I buy storage, I wipe it clean. Now, you should know that this is advertised as PC and Mac compatible. That just means the way that they formatted it. There's really no such thing as a not Mac compatible drive. It's just how it's formatted. So we can check all that and verify it right now. If we look at, let me go full screen on my side. Oh, I can see. So we have something called Start Here Mac app. There's a hidden folder here called Seagate. Let's go here, right click and go to Properties, and we'll be able to see that this is formatted in exFAT. And our free space is 931 gigabytes. I want you to remember that number. Now, without doing anything to this drive and without any prep, without any rehearsal, I'm going to run the latest version of the portable version of Crystal Disk Mark. Crystal Disk Mark is a program I like to use for measuring performance on internal solid-state drive, well, internal drives in general. We got to go over here and make sure we select the right drive, C, D, or E. This computer has a 2 terabyte Samsung 970 EVO internal NVMe and the Sabrent 1 terabyte internal NVMe. Both are PCI Express Generation 4, PCIe Generation 4 drives. I just tested the Sabrent drive the other day. So that means E must be my external drive. I can verify that by just going to this PC icon and, oh, I was wrong. Oh, I'm glad I didn't test it. I would have gotten completely different numbers. The Seagate drive, for whatever reason, is drive D. Well, that's really confusing, and I'm going to fix that. That's not the way it should be. Or it's not the way I want it to be. So I'm going to just close everything out. See, this is how you can tell this is not rehearsed. I'm going to right click, and this is a great learning opportunity anyway. We're going to go to disk management, and for disk E, I'm going to right click over here on this side, and oh, I'm wrong. I'm going to right click on the white space. I'm going to click change a drive letter and paths, and I'm going to change it to drive F because I want to free E up. And I can't change it to drive D because drive D is being taken. I want D to become E, and I want E to become D. But I can't utilize E or D if they're already utilized. So in order to free up drive E, I'll make it drive F. Now it's drive F. It's an empty drive. Now I'm going to go to drive D, and I'm going to change drive letter to drive E because I just freed up E and I made it F. Right? You following me? Any drive that's taken is not available here. So now that E is no longer taken, I can make that drive E. And now I can go back to drive F because I just freed up drive letter D by changing it to E. Now D is available, and I can change again, right click, change drive letter to drive D. We will see D is now available in the list. Click OK, click yes. And now it's going to be the way I expected. If I go to this PC right up here, there's my main C drive, my secondary D drive, and my external Seagate E drive. So that's how you can control that, and the PC will remember that from this point forward. Now, I'm going to start Crystal Disk Mark Portable. We're going to start the 64-bit edition of it. This is the latest version available as of May 15th, 2020. We're going to select drive E. It's very confusing for me because these drives are all very similar. Well, these two are very similar in capacities. They're both 1 terabyte. So anyway, we're going to go to drive E, and we'll do all the tests. And I'm kind of curious if this has any light on it to indicate that it's reading or writing. So there's already one thing I don't like. Oh, no, I take it back. There, it does have a light. It's right there. It's right at the very bottom. I don't know how well you guys can see that. And it's very subtle, but it's got it. Thank goodness. Now, I'm a little shocked we're not getting any numbers right now. This should have already been displaying something. Now, USB, of course, is going to be slower than the solid-state drive is capable. That is what's to be expected. What's not to be expected is to see 0. That ain't right. So we're going to let this continue on for a minute. We'll see if it has any better luck. I don't know if my moving it around, I mean, it's a brand new drive. It should not have jostled the cable in any way that would have caused a disconnect, but it could have. Or something else is happening here, which is strange. I'm not getting any numbers on this at all. Okay. I'm going to stop the test for a minute because something isn't right. So we're just going to hit stop. And I'm going to unplug the drive, and I'm simply going to move it to a different USB port. Once again, it should keep the same drive letter. So back to my this PC, it's not appearing. It's just not there. So I think yeah, I guess I just didn't have the cable plugged all the good enough in because you kind of heard it click that time. That's a good sign. We're going to try this one more time. Crystal Disk Smart Portable 64-bit. And we're going to try up here to drive D and see if we have any better luck this time. I should see some numbers pretty quickly. If you're familiar with watching me do this on other builds, the numbers do come up rather quickly. But for one reason or another, here we go. Now we're getting it. So 450 megabytes a second on the read speeds. Now that falls pretty much in line with the little Seagate flash drive I showed you at a quarter of the capacity and half the price. The Seagate 256 gig flash drive runs about that speed, sells for about $63. This drive is $139.99, and you get 4 times the storage. And it looks like, so far, identical read speeds and 4 times the capacity. So far, this is ahead as far as value goes. It is physically 4 times larger than that little pocket flash drive that's 1/4 the size. You see how that's working? The larger the capacity, uh, the larger the drive gets, unless you start sacrificing performance. They do make some much more portable 1 terabyte USB drives, but they don't run this quick. None that I'm aware of. And certainly if they do, they won't be at this price point. So we're going to go ahead and let that run here for a minute. And while that's running, let me just take a quick look in the chat room here and see if I'm missing any questions. If you guys have questions related to external storage or storage in general, please ask them in the chat room and I will do my best to provide you guys either an answer or a direction that you can follow to get the answer on your own. Sometimes the questions that are asked have very complicated answers that are best studied at that depth by the person asking. That the reason I wouldn't go into it, maybe I don't have all the information to be complete, and that I might bore 99% of you to answer that one person's question. But don't let that stop you from asking, because I will at very least point you to where you can go to get that kind of in-depth information. And if I can answer your question simply, of course I will. So I'm just looking through the chat while I'm waiting for the Crystal Dismark numbers to finish up here. Ron Hillier says, check out that action. Yeah, it's an inside joke. Thomas Beckenstowe has contributed $10. Hey, Thomas, thank you for that. And John Brentford has contributed $10. And John says, keep up the good work. Yes, sir. Thank you. What am I missing? Missile Man says, I need a good NAS storage system. Any good values? I think the Synology, like the 218, is a great value. It's under $300. The problem is, you put a pair of 16 terabyte Seagate Iron Wolves in it, you're looking at $500 for each drive. So you're going to be in at $1,300, but at the end of the day, you'll have 16 terabytes of storage mirrored to another 16 terabytes of storage in a RAID 1. I just think that deal can't be beat for that much storage. Carey, what is your opinion on userbenchmark.com? Userbenchmark.com, I think, is a great site if you're looking to compare products, graphics cards, CPUs, RAM, etc. They go into a lot of detail that for most end users is too much detail, but for some of you out there, it's exactly what you need. And you can't beat the price. All the information they provide and all the research they do is completely free. Now, this is just about, oh, it did finish. And there's our final numbers right there, 451 on the reads, 371 on the writes. And what is this? I think this is Gen 1 or Gen 2 USB 3. I'm not sure. I want to make sure I don't necessarily have it plugged into a slower USB port than what the drive is capable of. But I believe that is pretty much what's to be expected, and it's no slouch. Now, let me take another look at, maybe we can run the ATTO benchmark on it. I know some of you like to see that. And I should have that right here. Kevin Arsenal just contributed 20 Canadian dollars. Thank you, Kevin. With Joe Dorrington also contributing £2. He says, hey, Carey from Bexley in the UK. John, thank you. Kevin, thank you as well. Thanks for contributing to the cause here and keeping me neck deep in storage. All right, let me take a look where my ATTO test is. I think it's on here somewhere. Right on the top. Drag that out. And then I'll disconnect the flash drive. And see if I can run that. Didn't realize I had to install it. Well, that took forever. That was quick. Let's just move this aside. And ATTO should now be in here somewhere. There it is. We'll bring this over here. And we'll select the Seagate drive again. And we'll start the test. What ATTO is going to do is it's going to run a series of tests of different file sizes to replicate different ways the drives are used by end users. Some end users create a lot of large files, some create a lot of small. Most users do a little of both. And so this gives you an overall view of the performance in the with the file size doubling each time from 512 bytes to 1 kilobyte, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, all the way up. And then you will notice the speed of the drive gets faster as the files get bigger. This is very typical of storage, especially of solid state storage. And also, solid state storage that's larger in capacity does tend to transfer data faster. It could be the same manufacturer, the same drive, but a 2 terabyte drive of the same form factor potentially could transfer data faster than the 1 terabyte version, except the limitations of your connection. So at this point right now, I'm not quite sure what the limitations of this USB port are that we plugged into, but I'm certain it's far less than what the solid state drive can transfer if it was internal and connected to the motherboard. So to just give you an idea of comparison, notice on the right side where it says there's like a green bar moving, and just below that green bar it says write and then it says read. And as these numbers start appearing, you will see that as the file size is getting larger, the red bar and the gray bar to the left, the red bar represents the write speed, and the gray bar underneath of it for that same file size represents the read speed. Now, typically on solid state drives, the reads are generally a little bit faster, maybe by about 30% on average, than the writes. That's very common. Also, writes of large files to solid state drives often involve buffers, and it appears that your drive operates faster than it's really operating. It's like a cache. And that illusion is shattered when you copy a file larger than the buffer, and then the drive slows down to its actual speed. And so as the files get larger, if there's a buffering issue, we will see that the transfer speed will drop. Now, based on what we're seeing right now, anything from 1 megabyte file size and up is all transferring at the same speed on reads and writes. That's pretty interesting. Even at 12 megabytes, we're looking at similar numbers. With the Crystal Disk Mark, we're looking at 451 megabytes, and on ATTO, we're still around 395. So maybe as the file gets larger, it will continue to transfer faster. But it's been locked in at about 395 on the writes. Oh, I see. On the reads, it's at 429. I'm used to the reads being on the left. Okay, so 429, that falls in line more or less with Crystal Disk Mark. They're not going to be precise right down the way that they measure, because they're made by different people who have different ways of transferring data and measuring it, but they will be in the same ballpark. So from 451 to 429, you're more or less in the same ballpark there. And to give you a basis for comparison, just so you know, I'm just waiting for this test to complete. It looks like it's completed. Those are our final numbers for the external storage. I want to show you what the Sabrent drive, the Sabrent 1 terabyte PCIe Gen 4 that's plugged into the motherboard, same capacity, 1 terabyte, but it's NVMe plugged into the motherboard. Watch the numbers we get on this. The lesson here is there's a price you pay in performance when you go external, unless you go Thunderbolt. But then you're paying another price, which is you got to get a computer that has the Thunderbolt interface, and it's not going to be an AMD computer. And if you're a technician and you want to put your utilities on this drive and take it to different clients, the likelihood of your client having a Thunderbolt interface is highly unlikely. So the USB is far more ubiquitous and universal. And even if I took this internal drive out that I'm testing right now, which you'll see is far faster, it will still only operate at the speed of the USB port that I plug it into. So if I plug it into a USB 2 port, it's going to be really, really slow. If you put your Ferrari on the freeway at rush hour, you will not be driving as fast as the Ferrari can go, but only as fast as the car in front of you. Now you can already see our data transfer rate has more than tripled, almost quadrupled what that external drive. And now it's gone from 1.34 gigabytes. And you'll see the reads and the writes on this drive are very identical at this point. But we're going from 1 gigabyte, 2 gigabyte, 2.5, 3.5 gigabytes a second on the writes, which in this case are bigger than the reads, which is weird. The bigger the files get, you'll see the data transfer rate keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. I would like to see about 5 gigabytes a second out of this drive at the best it can possibly do. That means taking that Ferrari, putting it on an open racetrack where there's nobody but you and there's no turns. All you got to do is go straight. All you have to do is put your foot down to the floor with a perfect surface and perfect weather, with perfect tires and a skilled driver. Put your foot down to the floor and let the car do what it can do in a best case scenario. That's what 5 gigabytes a second represents. It'll represent a best guess. And we are hitting 5 gigs on the reads. So finally the reads have exceeded the writes once we hit 256K of file size. And we'll continue to do that. We're actually exceeding 5 gigabytes rather. Multiply that number times 8 if you want gigabits, which would be a lowercase b. An uppercase b represents bytes. 1 byte is equal to 8 bits. It's all math. So 5.12 gigabytes, 5.13 gigabytes. The largest I've seen so far is 5.22 on the 256K file size. The drive is fast. Far, far faster than any external storage. And even if we made it external, it still won't run this fast. It's got to be internal. Currently, that's where PC tech is on external interfaces. So I'm going to let this test finish here, and we'll continue on here in a moment. Okay, so that completes the test for the internal Sabrent 1 terabyte NVMe PCIe Gen 4 solid state drive. I hear myself speaking this stuff, and I realize to many average end users, they're like, I don't know what that means. It's just a type of storage. It's pretty expensive, and it's very fast. So as impressive as this external drive is right here, it certainly doesn't even come close to what an internal storage can do for you. However, internal storage may not help you if you're out in the field and you need to be able to copy files quickly, whether it's, again, if you're a photographer and you want to offload files from the camera, or you're a technician and you want to move a customer's data from one point to another. That's going to be faster than transferring it over a network in most cases. Most small offices, most offices in general, you're looking at a gigabit per second over the network, which translates to a couple hundred megabytes a second. You're not going to get these kind of transfer speeds over a regular network. So you can accomplish your job much, much faster with the right tools. Now, this opens up other possibilities and other related items for discussion. Now, some of you might be saying, what about a mechanical drive? What about the desktop external drives? Sure, they run slower, but they're a lot cheaper, and I can get a lot more capacity. I can get an 8 terabyte desktop external drive for probably nearly the same cost as this, which is $140. Why not do that? There's a couple of reasons why. However, there's a couple of reasons why you will. The one reason why you will do it is if you need that much storage. But ironically, that storage is slower and less reliable, meaning you potentially lose more data when it crashes, and it's going to take you longer, upwards of 2 to 3 to 4 times longer to transfer the data to that mechanical drive than to a solid state drive. So if you're saying, well, I need the capacity, the ironic thing is, if it was the same capacity, okay, if it was a mechanical drive versus a solid state drive, the mechanical drive is going to run at less than half the speed, maybe a third of the speed, could be even slower than that. So to just move 1 terabyte of data to this external drive versus to the mechanical drive, you'll get the job done in less than half the time. But now you're saying, well, the mechanical drive is 8 times bigger. So now it's going to take you 16 to 20 times more time than if you had an 8 terabyte external SSD, which would be profoundly expensive. Furthermore, mechanical drives are prone to failure, and they require external power. Let me show you something. This is your typical average ordinary random mechanical drive that we used to use. Some people still have them. This one's just 2 terabytes, which to me doesn't make any sense. For 2 terabyte solid state drives now are right around $230, and they're 10 times faster than this, far more reliable than this. They use less power, they generate less heat. I don't know why anybody would want to go to these anymore. This feels very, very old to me. And you can't just say, well, I'll just plug one of these little SATA adapters on here like this, and then I can use it externally, right? No, no. USB power cannot turn the motor. This is a mechanical motor turning a platter. So not only do you need a cable to plug into your USB port, but then you need a wall adapter to plug into the wall. You need 2 cables so that, here's the inside, so that the motor can spin this platter, and then the head here can move back and forth across both sides of the platter. There could be multiple platters. This one's got 2 platters. It reads from both sides, and it makes a lot of noise, and it uses some power, quite a bit of power. And if you bump this drive or knock it over, like if you set it on the floor, you put it in like a drive toaster, or you've got one of those, it's already enclosed, pre-built things because you got a good price on it. Not only is it slower now, but if you happen to knock it over, hit it with your shoe by mistake, or bump it while it's reading or writing, it may likely kill the drive beyond repair. So they're profoundly fragile when they're in operation. When they're off, they're not too bad, but you still want to treat them very delicately. So that's what the inside of one of those looks like. Now, by contrast, you could say, well, couldn't I just go buy a 1 terabyte drive and this $8 adapter and plug it in and basically have the same thing as this? Yeah, you could. Absolutely. Well, what about an enclosure? Well, you don't really need an enclosure on a 2.5-inch solid state drive. Do you see any circuit board? You see, on a mechanical drive, you'd want to protect that circuit board from electrostatic discharge, improper handling. But here, it's already by default in an enclosure. So to put this in another enclosure is just stupid. It's completely unnecessary. In fact, you're just trapping more heat. And solid state drives don't like heat. Furthermore, neither do these mechanical drives. These mechanical drives that are sold as external storage, however pretty they might look, they're not intended to be left on 24/7. You should unplug them when you're done to reduce the heat building up inside of its storage container, its enclosure. On the other hand, inside of a solid state drive, 2.5-inch solid state drive, all you're going to find in here is a circuit board. Now, if you could just buy this, I'd say, yeah, put it in an external enclosure to prevent any electric static discharge, electrical static discharge, to avoid any sort of damage. But it's already being sold to you in an enclosure. It's low power, so it doesn't require external power. It will run strictly off the USB cable. So this is a little bit smaller, as we can see. But at the end of the day, this is $100 for a 1 terabyte drive, and this is an $8 SATA to USB 3 cable. So how would it perform speed-wise? Remembering that the USB port is really the slow part here. So $139.99 for this, and let's say $100 for this and $8 for this. About a $30 or $40 difference, and we should have a similar capacity. Don't let the 960 gigabyte trick you. This is a 1 terabyte drive for all intents and purposes. I think ADATA is a little more honest about the capacity. However, we can compare that. That's why I told you to pay attention to the said earlier. Watch the size. This is a brand new drive. As you can see, I've never opened it until now. I have no idea what's about to happen here. We do know there's a $30 price difference, and there's a slight size differential. So let me disconnect. I mean, in theory, I can just pull this. I don't even have to properly disconnect it. There's our One Touch. You know, it's got the nice fabric on it. And it's a little bit smaller, which may be important to some of you. Obviously, I can't use this cable. I've got to use a SATA to USB adapter, and I'm just going to plug it in. And then once again, we'll go back to a blue USB port here. And let me flip back over to this desktop so I can see what's going on. We'll keep all these numbers in mind because we're going to close all this out now. 451 and 371. We'll kind of remember that to compare it with. Now you'll notice no drive has come up. This is a brand new drive, and unlike the Seagate drive that I showed you that was pre-formatted and has files on it, this is a brand new drive out of the package. They don't know if you're going to use this with Linux or Mac or Windows or what. So it's no partition and no format. So the first thing we have to do is go to the start. First of all, let me make my screen bigger again. Bear with me for a second. Okay, I can see now. Right click on the start button. We're going to go to disk management. And it should just automatically pop up and detect we've got a new drive, which it has not. Oh, it says right here, 894 gigs unallocated. I'm going to right click on that, click new simple volume. I'll click next, next. We can choose, let's see, it's going to be drive E, that's fine. And we can format this in NTFS or exFAT. Let's keep it in exFAT to keep it identical in the testing process. And then we're going to call this, we'll give it a drive name here, ADATA 1 terabyte. Okay. I guess I can put a little space there. And it's going to do a quick format. You see there's a little checkbox next to quick format. And it says, okay, you sure you want to do this? Yeah, hit finish. And it's formatted and ready to rock and roll. So we'll close all this back out. We'll go back to the My Computer or this PC icon. And we'll look at the capacity. This drive capacity is a little bit lower at 894 gigs, a couple of gigs smaller. It's obviously got some overhead going on there, but that's okay. And what I'm going to do is run Crystal Disk Mark Portable again. And one more time, we're going to select the proper drive up here. We want drive E, and we're going to run all the tests. And I'm very curious, for that $30 to $40 of savings in doing it this way, how much are we paying in performance? Are we getting less performance? Obviously, we've got a slightly larger footprint. Right now, the performance is significantly less. That's a bit surprising to me, because this drive is more than capable of going faster than that. So now I'm wondering if I plugged it into a slow USB port. So what I'm going to do, because that number is suspiciously low, I'm going to stop this test and I'm going to change the USB port. It's not a fair test if I've plugged it into a slower USB port. And I think I plugged in the other drive to the one above it anyway. So I want to plug into the same USB port just to be sure that my test is fair. One more time. The drive just popped up. It's recognized. We'll run Crystal Disk Mark. You'll notice I always shut Crystal Disk Mark down so that it gives the drive an opportunity to repropagate and for Crystal Disk Mark to start again and look and see what drives have changed. It may not work if you try to move your drives around with the software open. It might not. I just think it's a good habit to get into. And it looks like our number is pretty steady at 270.1, which is a bit shocking to me because internally this drive should move around 500 to 550. And we know that the USB port can carry across 450 on these reads. We just witnessed it. So we're at nearly half the speed for $30 less. That's surprising to me. I thought it would be identical. However, a different SATA to USB adapter may also make a difference here. It could be a limitation on the drive, though I don't think so. It appears to be some sort of translation issue with the adapter. So there's a lot of complicated things you get into when you try and piecemeal something together. It's not always equal. This is obviously a few dollars less, and it may require some experimentation with different adapters and different USB ports versus the other one is ready to rock and roll out of the box, and you're going to pay for that convenience. That's news to me. I wasn't actually expecting that result, but that's interesting to note. Now, if you're a technician and you're moving data from one box to another, depending on the amount of data you're moving, going from 280 to 450 could save you a lot of time. When you're billing clients by the hour, time is literally money. And if you can help several clients at the same time and you can be making $100 an hour from 3 different clients in that same hour, each one's billed $100 an hour, and well, this is running over here, you start this process over there, and you're multitasking and you're double and triple dipping on your hour, nobody's complaining, right? They're just seeing the work gets done in a timely manner for a reasonable price, and you can go home smiling that you just did 3 things in an hour that somebody else would only be able to do 1 if you have the right tools. Now, if you're only moving a few smaller files, it's not going to make that big of a difference going from 272 to 450. How you use it is really going to make a difference. And this is true for most things in life. If you were to buy a Toyota Prius because you wanted the best gas mileage, but you drive at 100 miles an hour everywhere you go, you'll find your gas mileage is pretty horrible, like around 13 miles to the gallon. If you drive a Prius the way it's intended to be driven, then you're going to see your 50 mile per gallon advertised, promoted. But it's not going to be that under all conditions. It really depends on how you drive the car. And the performance of these drives depends on how you're using them and whether or not you will notice that performance difference. Now, for me, I'm a bit of a tech head, and I love fast, capacious storage. I can't get enough of it. It's not fast enough. There's just not enough, and it's not fast. Give me more and give it to me faster, because I'm impatient. I want to move a file. I want to get on with life. I don't want to sit there, oh, that file's going to take another half an hour. I mean, it's great when you're thinking ahead, right? When you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to need that file later. I'll get it started now, and I'll come back later, and it'll be long completed. I'll go to the store. I'll run some errands. It'll wait for me, But no. I usually need it at the last minute. I'm on my way out the door. I'm running late. Oh, I need that file. It's going to take 20 minutes, whatever. I was ready to leave. Now I got to wait 20 minutes. So for me, being impatient, I'm trying to get a lot of things done. I'm trying to help a lot of people, trying to cram 16 hours of work into an 8-hour day. I don't like to be held back by my tools. Or worse, not have a tool at all. I mean, I'd rather have something than nothing, but I'd rather have the right thing. Now, that's me, right? That's how I use it. Is it that important to you? That's for you to decide. Now we're going to finalize this test here with the final write numbers. Down here on the lower right side, you'll see we're on our, it's at 42.70 on that final test. It's nearly finished. It's on the random write cycle. It does each one 5 times. Now it's on the 5th version of that. It takes, I think, the best number out of the 5, or it averages, I don't remember. But that test is now complete. And just to be thorough, let's run the ATTO benchmark and see how the drive performs as well. So we'll bring that up. That's the install. I gotta go over here. Once again, select the drive. A lot of people forget this part. And then we'll hit start, and we'll see what kind of numbers we can pull through across the different file sizes. In theory, that top number on Crystal Disk Mark should be our best case scenario. And like I said, there'll be a slight difference in the way that they calculate, but we should still be in the same ballpark. I don't think this will break 300 megabytes a second throughout the series of tests, but I could be wrong. So larger capacity mechanical drive, you've got to have that power cable. If you bump it or knock it over while it's reading or writing, you will probably permanently damage it. When they fail, you lose more data because they hold more data. Solid state drive runs off USB power, completely silent. You can bump it, knock it over, do whatever you want while it's reading or writing. It's far more durable. It's far faster. It's far smaller, far more portable, far more eco-friendly in the manufacturing, in the amount of space it takes on your desk, the footprint of it. And I was going somewhere else. Far more reliable. Faster, more reliable. Now, no storage is perfect. All storage will fail eventually. When a hard disk drive fails, it can fail for any number of reasons. You can have platter damage, in which case, too bad, so sad. Nobody can really help you with that. You can have head damage. You can have a motor problem. You can have a circuit board or firmware problem. Lots and lots of problems. I've discussed that in great detail with Brian Cometa over at $300 Data Recovery, in that, no company can guarantee that they can get your data back on a mechanical drive. Because if the mechanical drive internally is destroyed, the data is destroyed with it. Fortunately, most of the times when a hard drive fails, they are able to get the data back. It doesn't necessarily fail so catastrophically, but it's possible. When a solid state drive reaches its limited write cycles, at that point it won't let you write to it anymore. Now, I've never seen a solid state drive reach that point. And I think with average ordinary use, it would take about 70 years for the average user to hit that. And they would long since replace the drive for a faster, larger capacity drive, long before they hit those write cycle limitations. And I realize there are websites that have just written to the drives with the sole purpose and intent to get to the end of the write cycle, which is not a realistic way to judge a drive. But let's just say you're one of those freaks out there that does not represent the majority of the population, and you are one of the very few that's ever hit the write cycle limit on your solid state drive. Your data is still on it. Nothing bad has happened to your data. It simply becomes read-only. Then there's people that are fascinated with the whole archival thing, archiving data, which I think is silly nonsense. If data is that important to you, it's not something you're going to stick in a closet and ignore for 4 years. And the argument is that if you were to put data on a solid state drive, that data would just fade away over time sooner than it would on a mechanical hard drive. That's one of the weirdest arguments I've ever heard, because if you're looking at the data that infrequently, it can't be that important to you, number one. Number two, the magnetic forces on a hard disk platter do fade over time, and your data will be lost there as well. So whether you're going solid state drive or mechanical drive, it's important that you plug them in about once a year to refresh that magnetic layer. And on a hard drive, it's going to take you longer because you basically have to run the head across the entire platter doing like a sector check to re-energize that magnetic value of those platters. Or in a solid state drive, you just energize it, just give it power, and it's refreshed again. I have never seen a solid state drive that's been left, or for that matter, a flash drive that's been left for years. I've never seen one in reality that didn't still have the data on it. I still have an iOmega 256 meg little portable flash drive from what, 10 years ago? And the data that's always been on there is still on there. It's never lost. I very rarely plug it in, once every few years. So these people, they play this what if game, and it's based on ignorance. It's based on reading some article or seeing some video that's meant to shock you, and it's meant to alert you and make you aware of this. And it's so unlikely, and it's so unrealistic, it's so improbable that people that want to talk to me about archival storage, who want to talk about leaving it unattended and unchecked for years, is like two of the opposite things. If data is that important to archive for many, many years, then it's important to audit it on a regular basis as you would any other data, archival or not. If it's important, it has to be audited. This idea that you can seal it away in a time capsule and uncover it in 50 years, that's what newspapers are for. Print out your stuff and go stick it in your time capsule and bury it in your backyard. I just don't like having unrealistic conversations with people who want to make up completely unrealistic examples that the average ordinary computer user would never ever encounter, and use that as justification to suggest that one technology is inferior to the other in that particular circumstance. It's preposterous. It would be like telling me that the car that I bought, despite being rated so good in every level by all these review sites, is actually quite bad, because if you were to go sideways on it and get up on two wheels, the balance is likely to tip you over on your hood, and therefore makes the car more dangerous than this other model, which is more bottom heavy because it's got batteries on the bottom and it's less likely to flip over onto its hood if you were on two wheels. Who puts their car on two wheels? Why is this something we're talking about? It's like an excuse to argue. It's absolutely asinine. So when I start to sense that kind of person in the conversation, I cut it short, right? You do what you want to do. Whatever you want to believe, you go right ahead and you believe that. I don't mind. I'm not here to change your mind. I honestly don't care. But as a technician and as a consultant for companies, I advise them about the risks and the costs involved with data backup, data storage, ransomware, data recovery. In theory, data recovery businesses should not exist. If everybody backed up the data the way that they're supposed to, in other words, if you made copies of your important, forget archiving, if you made copies of your important data and you place them in another location, somewhere that, if one location catches fire or is involved in a natural disaster, or you get ransomware or accidental deletion or a theft or all these other reasons, then your data is safe, a copy of it, in some other location, whether that's out in the cloud, somewhere on the internet, or in a physical location somewhere else. You would never need a data recovery service, and data recovery is very expensive. But the one thing that everybody who's ever lost data has in common is none of them were expecting it. Always expect it at all times. I get so sick and tired of people going, I'm going to upgrade my operating system. I should probably back it up first. You should have been backing up regardless. Just because you're upgrading your operating system doesn't necessarily mean you're more at risk to lose your data than you were for the last 2 years. When you think everything's going well, that doesn't mean everything's going well. It means you think it is. And most days you'll be right. But on the day you're not, you'll understand exactly what I'm saying. It's basically insurance. I hope I never need it, but it's there just in case I do. All right, guys, I think that pretty much sums up the points I was trying to make today, I hope. And let me go back to camera 1. So you see all the final numbers on the going this route for about $30 less. They're still pretty quick, just not as quick. And like I say, the little USB flash drives, these SanDisk Extreme Pros, For 256 gigs, it's around $64. And these will read and write right around that 400 megabyte, 450 megabyte range as well. The writes will be a bit slower. But that's why you'll see me use this all the time. It's very, very fast. Also, I mentioned before the internal 2 terabyte ADATA, what is it, the XP8100 or something like that? Still on sale today at Amazon. 2 terabytes of NVMe storage that runs faster than Intel's 660p. It runs faster than a 2 terabyte, 2.5-inch drive for about the same price. Why would you go slower for the same amount of money? So I'd suggest if you're in the market, there's not a better value that I'm aware of in performance and capacity for price currently today, May 15th, 2020, than that ADATA drive on Amazon in the USA right now. Prices fluctuate all the time. For example, the Eero system that Steve Bass reviewed was $199.99. Today, that same EERO Wi-Fi mesh system that Steve Bass reviewed on Amazon, the same place, same product, it's now $249.99. Why did the price go up $50? I don't know. The same thing. So in that case, you're getting the exact same product and paying more, just to add some confusion. In this case, we're spending a little less, we're getting a little less, or we're getting less capacity and we're spending half the price, or we spend double the price and get 4 times the capacity, but it's a bigger form factor. It's all these different decisions you have to make, and you have to pick which one's okay with you. And don't confuse yourself. What's okay with you, and whatever decision you make, is only okay with you. Please don't make that decision for anyone else. Give them all the information like I've given you. Direct them to this video and encourage them to choose for themselves. Don't pick the item at the menu. Don't tell them what they're going to eat for dinner. Give them the menu. Let them decide what they want to eat for dinner. No matter how much you like a certain dish, don't order for other people. It's rude. Let people decide for themselves. And appreciate your choices are unique to you for your reasons, and only you, and only your reasons. That's all I'm saying. Show a little respect. A couple of contributions have come in. Let me give a couple of shouts out here to what I have missed while I've been yabbering on here. Let's see. We've got 1,000 people watching. Very cool. Oh, I missed a lot. June Kim contributed $5, says, hey, Carey, congrats on the 300,000 subscribers once again. Maggie's in Exile contributed £1.99. David Griswold's contributed $5. He says, hey, Carey, from Buchanan, Michigan. Nice and sunny here today. Yeah, rub it in, David. Wish I was there. Mark Stevens has contributed $5. Carey, I bought your optimizer. It's great. Thank you. Right on, Mark. Thank you. Hugh Wong with a $2 contribution says, hey, Carey, go get him. Thanks, Hugh. Bill Shaw contributed $4.99. He says, you're a good man, Carey. Thank you, Bill. Niles Van de Sand with a €2 contribution. Thanks, Niles. He says, which is better, the Seagate SSD or the Samsung T5? Fair question. Let's answer it. But first, let me just say thank you to Rain One Full. Sorry, dyslexia. Rain One Full contributed $2 Canadian. Thank you for all of your contributions and support. So yeah, let's extend this a little bit. Let me put myself in the corner again. Let me go right here. And then turn the desktop back on. So again, those were our final numbers here on the ADATA SU650, basically 1 terabyte, although it is advertised as 960 gigs, a little bit smaller. What I'm going to do, again, I'm going to close out the applications. So we'll close ATTO, and then I will take, I put that right over me, right under me. There it is. Grab that. Those were the final numbers on that, on the ADATA as well. We're going to close that out. Again, it's not necessary to disconnect devices in modern Windows 10. It's a good idea to do it, but in theory, I shouldn't have to do that anymore. I should be able, as long as the drive is not reading or writing, I should be able to just pull the plug on it. Still a good idea to click the little icon down on the system tray and eject a device. But I don't care. Now, let's take a look at the performance of the Samsung 256 gig SSD. This is about half the price, 1/4 of the storage. I'm going to plug it in the exact same USB port. Now this has a bunch of backups, Acronis backups on it. I love it because I can make images. Every one of those is an image of a system, a full image. And there's plenty of rooms on this 256 gig solid state flash drive. I'm calling it a solid state flash drive, to add even more images to more systems. So I can restore a Thready. I can restore my Sony laptop. I can restore my Dell XPS 15 laptop. All of those are full images. Even the 3950 right here, that's fully backed up onto that flash drive with Acronis. So without doing anything else, let's go back to Crystal Disk Mark and let's see how this drive performs comparatively. Now this drive has 2 partitions on it, and I want to choose the larger partition in order to give Crystal Disk Mark enough room to do its writes and reads of this 1 gig file size. The first partition is the Acronis rescue disk, so that flash drive, I can boot from it right into Acronis, and then the secondary partition, which makes up the majority of the capacity of that flash drive, I put my images on. And this way I can update the Acronis software without interfering with my images. All right, let's see what this does. We'll run all the tests on the flash drive. I should see the light on the flash drive blinking, and it is. Gamma Goblin Miller has contributed 20 Czechoslovakian something. He says, haha, it's a little smaller. It is a little smaller. Stephen Tomlin contributed £2. He says, thanks for the great videos. Have a Coke on me. And Rain One Full contributed again $2, and he says, Ryan is my real name. Well, it looks like one of us is dyslexic. Now you'll see those read numbers on this little flash drive are identical to this flash drive, but that fits more easily in my pocket. Personally, I don't like that the cable comes out of the side. I would have had the cable come out the shorter edge, and I don't like this tag. I would cut this off. It just seems unnecessary. There's a little tag up here that you would see like on the back of a t-shirt. I don't like that. And apparently, because it's got this fabric, they thought it'd be a good idea to tag it like a t-shirt. Yeah, I don't care for that, but it's not a deal breaker. It's just something I don't care for. Now we can compare these numbers once it's complete to this drive, and of course to this drive. We won't even try a mechanical hard drive because we'll be here forever testing it. The numbers will be at the best maybe 180 megabytes at the best. And let me go back in my office. I have a Samsung T5, which is more equivalent to the ADATA. And it's a fair question to ask how it performs, because the Seagate drive is the closest thing to being compatible. It's the nearest identical. I'm looking for my cables. I've got the drive. I just don't know what I did with my cables. Is that my cables? That's one cable. Where's the other one? Is this it? Yeah, that's it. Okay. Put this back. Bear with me for a second. It's a little dusty. It's been sitting on the shelf for a while. I haven't missed anything. It's just now doing the writes. Right now the writes appear a little bit slower. Oh no, there we are. We're right back up in the same ballpark. Now if you look in the upper right corner where I am over here, this is a Samsung T5. If I hold it right side up, and you will see the cable goes into the shorter end, not the side. This is the Seagate drive. This is the Samsung. Hmm. Look at that. What if I put one over the other one? They're nearly identical in every dimension. Yeah, I would say they're exactly identical. That's interesting. This feels a little bit thicker, but I think it's just because this has rounded corners and this is squared off. I think they're pretty much the same thickness. Yeah, they are. I don't need the fabric, I don't need the tag, and I don't need the plug on the side. So that brings me to the Samsung T5. Now this is also 1 terabyte of portable, they're calling it an SSD. They're calling all of this SSD storage. And it comes with two different cables. It comes with a Type C to Type C cable and a Type C to Type A. Obviously, it's got to have Type C to plug into the device itself. And then whether or not you've got Type C on your motherboard, you can use that. To keep all the tests fair and equal, I'm going to use the regular Type A cable so I can plug into the same port. And the test is finished, well, it's nearly finished, on the SanDisk Extreme Pro 256 gig drive. It sells for like 65 bucks, 63. It changes daily. It was 75, so it's come down a little bit. And there it is. Those are the final numbers on the SanDisk Extreme Pro USB flash drive. Very small, and it's one of my favorites, my personal favorite. I'm going to close that out. Like I said, it's always a good idea to come down here and eject the drive. Although in theory, as long as we're not reading or writing to it, as long as the light's not on and flashing, it should be safe to just pull it now. So here is, let's go back to full screen so you guys can see me a little better. Once again, just so you can see it larger, this is the Samsung T5, 1 terabyte SSD storage. This is the Seagate. They are nearly identical in every single way. Black and white. Samsung costs a bit more. Does it perform better? Let's find out. USB Type-C, similar to what you have on most modern cell phones. You can plug it in either way. You don't have to worry about taking 3 attempts to figure out which of the 2 ways works. Then we're back to 3 attempts with regular Type A. We're going to plug that again into the exact same USB port I've been using, just to make sure I don't have one USB port faster than another. If that's not the fastest USB port, at least the tests are all fair. Now, if I go to minimize me again, we put me in the corner. There we go. You'll see I've got an Acronis True image on there. Making my backup images is so much faster on a solid state drive through USB. And you can see that that's an Intel 2 terabyte drive, and once it's not full, but once it's been compressed down with the Windows operating system and all my programs and everything, we're down to, 600 some odd gigs. So it's the other thing Acronis does for you, is it's got file compression, so things don't take up as much room. But it does have enough free space for us to go ahead and run Crystal Disk Mark on, so let's go ahead and do that now. Make sure we select the right drive here. And let's see what kind of numbers we're going to get out of the Samsung T5. Now the T5, I'm just kind of curious what it's selling for now. I can check that while this test is running. As I recall, it's a bit more money than Seagate. But maybe Samsung is responding to that. Let's see. No, the Samsung T5 is $179.99 for the 1 terabyte versus the Seagate drive I showed you was $139.99. So Seagate wants 40 more dollars for the same capacity and what appears to be nearly the same exact drive. It's interesting. Very eye-opening. And it looks like we're getting identical numbers out of the Samsung drive. And I will run the ATTO test. I did not run it on the flash drive. I think I made my point with that. But we will run it on here just to be thorough and make sure it's all complete. Jesus Mill Games contributed $2. He says, thanks for the education. Hey, thank you. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for being a part of the community here. And welcome into everybody who's watching. It looks like we've got 1,124 viewers watching live around the world. If you guys like the content, please let me know. You can hit that thumbs up button and turn it blue if you want to see more content like this. That's how you let a content creator know. If you want to know anytime I'm going to go live, there's a subscribe button. Be sure and click it and then hit the little bell icon to turn notifications on so you can get an alert anytime I go live or anytime I post new content. It sucks when I see people going, oh, I didn't know you were live. I missed it. I didn't get the notification. First things first. First, you got to subscribe and make sure the notifications are turned on. So again, if you like the content, nothing more than a thumbs up, a click, super easy. And I appreciate that if you do that. And as for the subscribing, that's really up to you. We just broke 300,000 subscribers. I've been doing this now 12, 13, 14 years. I don't do any search engine optimization. I don't do any clickbaiting. I don't do any marketing. This is all purely organic, real, true, natural growth. If you want to start your own YouTube channel, you just start making videos and be patient and it will grow. Or you can spend some money and pay people to manipulate your numbers and fake views, and you can get there that way too. I couldn't afford to get there that way. And I also like to keep everything real and honest, and I'm very proud that this channel has grown 100% organically. Maggie's in Exiles contributed £1.99 and says, thanks, Carey, from Stonehouse, England. That does sound very English, doesn't it? Stonehouse. It's very noble sounding. We're just about getting to our final numbers here on the Samsung T5 external solid state drive. Again, 1 terabyte in storage. Quasi Quad says the Samsung T5 is $269.95 here in Ottawa, Ontario. Yeah, but that's Canadian dollars. It's not $269 in American dollars. Feral Sparky's contributed $2 and says external solid state drives are really a game changer. Yeah, agreed. I see a good friend there, Madi Yoel, joining us in chat, contributed $10. He says hello. Welcome in, Madi. Good to see you. Just about done with this test. And there it is. There's our final numbers on the Samsung T5. Now again, we'll do the ATTO test and see how it compares that way. Let's move it off to the side. There we go. That was a good question asking me to test the T5 against the Seagate because that's the closest identical product. And capacity, size, in every way. But there is a $40 price gap. And so up until that moment, I was leaning towards the Seagate being the most expensive. Now the Seagate doesn't seem so bad, does it? At 140 compared to 180. I'm going to round the numbers up. 139.99 is a penny away from 140, and 179.99 is a penny away from 180. We got a $40 price gap. Now, if you ask me, is it worth $40 to get rid of the fabric and the tag and the location of the plug? No. That's worth maybe $5. It's not worth 40. So if it's my money I'm spending, I'll buy the Seagate and I'll deal with it. But if I have endless amounts of money and $40 is nothing to me, I'll get the T5. On the other hand, if I don't need a terabyte, well, you know I'm going to rely on that little SanDisk 256 gig flash drive I showed you, the Extreme Pro. Now, granted, it's like $65. I keep changing the number. It's in the low 60s, mid 60s, and it's only 256 gigs, so it's 1/4 the capacity. But I love that there's no cable involved. I love how small it is. I love I can just throw it into a pocket and forget it's there. But I would need 4 of those to match that capacity, which now we're looking at $240 or $250 versus 180. Now the Samsung seems cheaper versus 140. But if you lose the cables, you're screwed. If you lose the cables on your Seagate or your Samsung T5, you have no way to plug it in. With a flash drive, there's no cable to lose. There's no cable to come loose, like when I was jiggling it around and it came loose. That's not an issue with the SanDisk Extreme Pro flash drive. So pros and cons all the way across the board, different prices to meet different people's needs, different people's capacity needs, performance needs, portability needs. It goes across the board. Again, advertising it is Mac compatible. Any of this stuff is Mac compatible. As long as you format it in exFAT, you're fine. That's a universal disk format that both Windows and Mac will read. If you format it in NTFS, you might have some problems reading it on the Mac. Maybe, maybe not. So I'm not a Mac guy. I don't really deal with Apple products. I don't really deal with Linux. I go where the business is. Most people own Windows-based machines, and there's more opportunity for work. If that wasn't the case, well, then I'd be going where the work was. So it's not a preference with regards to loving Microsoft or hating Linux or Apple. It's really, for me, about going to where opportunity exists. And there's far more opportunity for work where there is a majority, right? So ask any virus writer. You want to write your virus to affect the most amount of people. If most people use Windows, you're going to write your virus for that platform. Doesn't make the other platforms technologically more secure. It makes them less desirable to attack because you didn't say to have as big of an impact potentially. We're nearly complete with the ATTO disk benchmark. Any final questions I can answer to you about any of these storage devices or any storage related questions, this will be the time, because I'm going to wrap this one up a bit early tonight. I've got to get back to the other studio and get some more work done. I haven't been over there this whole week, and so no work has gotten done this whole week over there. And I'm starting to feel a little anxiety because I have the place for a limited amount of time. And every day that it's not ready is another day I've lost of being able to start broadcasting from there. You could forget about it, put it in your jeans and wash it. You'd be okay. In most cases, if you leave a flash drive in your pocket and you go through the wash cycle, in most cases, the flash drive will survive that. What it will not survive is the heat of a dryer. The heat of the dryer will typically kill a solid state drive. But putting it through the wash, as long as it's completely dry when you plug it back in most cases, they'll work fine. Again, anything on that flash drive should be a copy so that you're never in a situation where you ever lose data or have to go to data recovery. Always have duplicates of important files. So at the very least, you have to buy another flash drive, for a few bucks. If it's your fault you left it in a pants pocket. I will tell you though, through experience, you can often wash them and they survive. It's the drying cycle that kills them. That heat will kill them. That's their enemy. Not water, heat. What about hot water? Any other questions? There's our final numbers on the Samsung T5, and we can compare that to Seagate's drive. We can put those side by side or whatever. You can roll this video back. It's got the DVR function enabled, so you can rewind a video at any point. And perhaps in editing, I can put my sister to work and she can put them side by side with some text to explain which one's which, and we can see how they compare. In the meantime, let's see, Daniel Schroeder just contributed $24.99, and he says, thanks for all you do. Keep up the great work. Hey, Daniel, thank you. Thanks for the support. Thanks for being a member of this community. Is Daniel a moderator? Yes, he is. Excellent. Excellent. I'm just going to look through the chat one final time for any questions, and I'm going to pause here a moment to give you guys an opportunity to hear me and respond. There's about a 90-second delay from when I speak to when you hear me. In fact, while I'm waiting, I think I'm going to put the, we're kind of done here with this screen. I'm going to close all this out. And I'm going to disconnect the T5. There I am. Carey in your face. Yikes. Wouldn't want to be you. Chris Chase just contributed $5. Hey, Chris, thank you for that. And Adam Sleeth contributed $5 Australian. Hey, Adam, thank you. I see you guys are both moderators already, which is fantastic. See, my buddy Ron is checking out. We'll talk soon, Ron. I'm going to be doing a review of the Leon Lee TU100 versus the TU150 case. And then I'll finally be able to get Ron's computer out. I just have to do that side-by-side comparison. That's basically what Ron's waiting on. And that's another reason why I haven't started another computer build. And then I have a computer desk that arrived. I'm going to put that together and review it. That's going at the other studio location. I have one other thing to review. Oh, I've got a cooler comparison test. We're going to compare a Hyper 212 Evo versus a Mugen 5 versus the Dark Rock 4 Series 2 or something. It's a brand new Dark Rock cooler. I can't think of the name off the top of my head from Be Quiet. And we're going to just back to back to back run them, compare the ease of installation or difficulty of installation, the amount of noise they generate, and the amount of level of cooling they do. I imagine the cooling performance difference is going to be very minor. The installation process, however, I already know that 212 Evo's not going to do well there. The Mugen 5 is going to excel. The variable here is how much did Be Quiet improve the installation process on the Dark Rock cooler. So those are the reviews I've got coming up, along with another new build. Busy, busy, busy. Shrine Idol has contributed £2 and says, for my anti-socially distanced fund. You have an anti-socially distanced fund? It's brilliant. Rick says, Carey, I hope you have a good evening. Thank you, Rick. You as well. Fred wants to know what a good, fast, solid-state drive is. The best you can afford, Fred. The price, capacity, and performance are all related. Just stick with the name brand. Stick with ADATA, Sabrent, Intel, Samsung, SanDisk. I wouldn't buy other brands unless I always made sure I had regular backups. Well, you should be doing that anyway. But you do tend to get what you pay for. Right now, with M.2 NVMe, I think the best bargain for the best performance unquestionably today, this will change if you're not watching this video on May 15, 2020, is the drive from ADATA. That is the M.2 NVMe 2 terabyte drive for $240 for 2 terabytes. That's a heck of a deal. If you've got a computer that will support it, if you've got a modern computer that has NVMe, NVMe. Brett says he just installed a 3950X with the Be Quiet dark cooler, and it's pretty cool looking. I honestly don't care what it looks like, man. I care about how loud it is. I care about how difficult it is to install. I care about how much money it costs, and I care about how well it cools. Nothing in what I said was about how it looks. But to each his own, man, to each his own. It's important to you. What about Crucial? Yeah, Crucial's a major manufacturer of solid state drives. I would buy Crucial, no problem. I can't, off the top of my head and unscripted and answering questions off the cuff, doing the best I can with providing full and complete information. Though if I had time to really think about it and write it out, there's probably a few more names I would mention. But I have no doubt about the names I did mention, right? Those are the ones I buy personally. I typically don't buy Crucial solid state drives. There were a bunch that were contributed. I think John Craig sent like 10 of them that were 240 gigs to be used in the upcoming veteran builds. I'll give them away. And so far as I know, they've all been great. For whatever reason, they don't do it for me. But if everybody that I mentioned was sold out, I would seriously consider Crucial if I needed a solid state over and above somebody like Silicon Power. Silicon Powers aren't necessarily bad, but you may not get any support. It's really hard to say on that one. A big thank you to Stephen Bernstein. Stephen made a nice charitable contribution through an Amazon gift card earlier today, and I'm glad I just saw that in the chat because I wanted to give him a shout out and say thank you to him for basically being responsible for bringing today's show to you. So officially, today's show is brought to you by Stephen Bernstein. If you like the content, be sure and let Stephen know in the chat room today. If any of you want to support the channel, you can do so using Super Chat. You can provide a contribution via PayPal. There's a link for that in the video notes below the video. Or you can provide an Amazon gift card, and a link for that is also in the video notes below the video, and help keep me free of sponsorships. We're going to bring on RoboForm for a couple of months, and we're going to experiment with some sponsorship. I'm very proud and I'm honored to have RoboForm associate themselves with me in an official manner. And I'm not going to bombard you with RoboForm every day. I'm not going to, because that's not good for us. It's not good for them. It's not good. But I will bring them on at least once a month. And I'll make sure that they offer you guys steep discounts that's only available to you for a limited time. And we'll also talk about some other products like GoodSync, as well as perhaps do a walkthrough of how to use RoboForm. Some of you have never really understood the concept of what RoboForm does. And while they do have wonderful tutorials on their website that you can go through, be a good excuse to bring them back and we'll walk through the process together and give examples of how to use it. Been using RoboForm for about 15 years at least. And there are competitors, and I'm not saying anything bad about them, but they're not sponsoring me and I don't use their product for 15 years. So I'm really glad that RoboForm is kind of going on this explorative journey of discovery with me to see what potential exists here that benefits them, it benefits you, it benefits me. Everybody. It should be a win-win-win situation. But I also don't want to be up here hawking 5 or 6 different products during a broadcast. And your contributions help to keep me independent. This Samsung T5 I bought with money that was contributed to the channel. This Seagate 1 terabyte drive I bought with money that was contributed. Those Amazon gift cards, guess where this came from? And that enables me to do these videos independently and to be free to say exactly what I feel to give my opinion without worrying about upsetting a sponsor, or to worry about sending the video in for approval. A lot of you don't realize that the big YouTube channels, they charge a lot of money. You know, a company like Seagate might go to one of these big tech channels and say, would you review our drive? And they'll say, yeah, it's $20,000 if you want us to do it. No exaggeration. And they'll say, okay, we're going to write up a contract because if we're going to pay you $20,000, we want to make sure that your review meets our approval before you publish it. How can you trust reviews like that? On the other hand, how can you operate a giant YouTube channel and have editors and fancy camera equipment and camera operators without paying them a salary, knowing what YouTube pays? It's not doable. That's the industry. And you may not be aware that what you're watching is necessarily genuine. You may also find, if you pay close attention, that once a channel establishes a relationship with a certain large manufacturer with deep pockets, you see more of that manufacturer's products than anything else on that channel. How can you believe what you're hearing is authentic and genuine when so much is at risk if they upset that deep pocket sponsor? So if you happen to see a lot of a particular manufacturer at a particular channel, money is involved. If you see it here, it's because I like it. The Coca-Cola's never paid me a penny. Quite the opposite. Corsair doesn't pay me anything. I just like the $200 case. There's a different reason why I make my videos. And I keep trying to emphasize that to you, the viewer, so that you at least know the difference. I'm not saying what I'm doing is better. I'm saying what I'm doing is different than what you're accustomed to seeing. And how many YouTube content creators share their platform with their viewers? When you guys want to make a video of your build and you want me to share it here, if it's family friendly and it's done relatively well so we can see what's going on, you see I share my stage with my viewers. Who else does that? Who else has the stupidity to go live without a script and go on for hours and potentially misspeak and put yourself right at the knife's edge of ending your career because anything could go wrong? And I do it daily. So you can either appreciate the value and the risk, or at the very least understand the difference between scripted and edited and paid for content that gets approval by the person paying before you ever see it. My stuff doesn't get approval from nobody. It's live. It's real. It's just like hanging out with me in real life. And I wish that was every YouTube channel, me personally. But because it's not, makes me feel like it's important. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for the contributions. Hugh Wong just contributed $5. Says, my wife won't let me drink Coca-Cola anymore. I gained 10 pounds. Sorry, Carey. Just got to exercise more, man. You got to drink the Coca-Cola while you're jogging. Stephen Tomlin contributed again £5. He says, I want to say thank you for the RoboForm offer you had. It's amazing and better than other I've used in the past. I agree, Stephen, although, to be honest, I really haven't used anything else because I haven't had any motivation to move away from RoboForm and have to familiarize myself with the processes and the usability of their competitors. They've just never upset me. They've never had a data breach. They've never had a program crash my computer in all these years. So I have no motivation to go anywhere else. If RoboForm says, hey, the sponsorship isn't working out, we tried, it's not working, I'm still recommending their product and I'm still using their product. That's what differentiates my tech channel from pretty much all of the big ones. Certainly any of them larger than me. I'm not aware of anybody larger than me or of an equal size of me that's doing what I'm doing. Because most people will say you can't get as big as I've gotten doing what I'm doing. I'm breaking all the rules. I'm just keeping it real, man. And I'm just letting nature take its course and hoping the cream will rise to the top. And I'm very patient. 12 years. It's been more than 12 years I've been on YouTube. It's not like I gained 300,000 subscribers in a year like some of those other channels do. So I don't have big companies tweeting me out like they do. Sometimes Acronis will send out a tweet when I talk about them, which is flattering. But that's it. Nobody else really talks about me. And I'm okay with it. All right. A couple other contributions. Let me give these shouts. shout outs, and then I'll get out of here for today. Lincoln Young contributed $5. Carey, keep up the great work. An example of being self-employed. Right on, Lincoln. Thank you. Great name. That's a great name. Hugh Wong, thank you. Stephen Tomlin, thank you. Farrell Sparky with another $5 contribution. Says, I'm going to need to review this video for science and stuff. Right on. And Thomas Beckenstowe contributed $10 and says, excellent as usual. You guys are, those kind words, you know, they only encourage me. Be careful. So let me give a shout out. And Gary Tatum, very nice contribution here, $20. He says, keeping it real. Thank you, Gary. That's important to me, and I hope it's important to you. It's the value system that I have doesn't seem to be shared by many in this industry, so I'll just chalk it up to me being weird in the hopes that there's other people weird like me that appreciate it. Thank you to June Kim, Thomas Beckenstowe, John Brentford, Kevin Arsenault, John Dorrington, Maggie's in Exile, David Griswold, Mark Stevens, Hugh Wong, Bill Shaw, Niles Van de Sand, Rain One Full, Gamma Goblin Miller, Stephen Tomlin, Rain One Full 2 more times, Jesus Mel Games, Maggie's in Exile again, Farrell Sparky, Madi Yoel, Daniel Schroeder, Chris Chase, Adam Sleeth, Sharon Idle, and of course Lincoln Young, Hugh Wong, Stephen Tomlin again, Farrell Sparky again, Thomas Beckenstowe and Gary Tatum. These are all the contributors during today's broadcast, making this content available for you guys to watch for free because of their generosity. And I can't thank you enough for that. I hope all you guys thank them as well. There's a handful of silent contributors. Folks like John Jack Wilson and Colin Hilton and David Hale and David Stetzel and Tony Wallow, guys that don't necessarily get all the attention they truly deserve for what they're doing in the background to help me to get these parts and cameras and everything I need to broadcast and enable me to be able to do this more often. And you'll notice, before I was doing mostly tech work with a little bit of YouTube work. Now I'm doing a lot more YouTube work and much less tech work. But I still have customers, I still have clients. I'm not getting any new ones. So when they retire or they decide to move on, it'll be 100% YouTube for me from that point forward. And I'll still be doing tech work, but I won't have any clients officially like I do now that are on a retainer. So that's the direction I'm moving in with the contributions. That's helping grow the channel, increase the income, and making it more possible for me to see that go through. And ideally, by the time these clients want to retire, because my clients are in their 60s, when they're ready to retire and I lose the business through no fault of my own, it'll just be more time available to make more YouTube videos. So everything's falling into place very nicely. Joseph Hawkins just contributed 9 New Zealand dollars and says, Carey, here's my little support. Right on, Joseph. Thank you. It all adds up, my friends. Big contributions, little contributions. Something as simple as hitting the thumbs up button, subscribing to the channel, sharing the links to the videos, participating and being friendly in the chat. You know how odd and unusual it is to find a friendly community without somebody trying to tear it down or rip people apart? We have something very special here, and it means a lot to me. Forget all the contributions, forget all that. Just that chat room right there, to have a safe place with people I can call friends, most of which I've never met in real life, but I will tell you the ones I have met that started out in the chat room. Guys like Mitch Morrison and Rich Robbins, guys like, Madi I've never actually met face to face, but I've talked to him so much on the phone, I feel like I have. There's several people in this community that started out in the chat room and ended up right here joining on the kitchen with me, or joining me in the kitchen, I mean to say, and have become honest to God, true real life friends. And who'd have thought? It's just a bunch of weirdos on the internet after all. Well, step aside, here comes one more. Thanks for watching me. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Stay safe. If your community is starting to open up restaurants and salons and things, obviously follow the rules, be considerate of other people. I expect my community, I don't have to tell you that. You're already that way. Forget what I said. You're exempt. You're good. You'll be fine. You know the right thing. I should be back certainly Monday. If there's an opportunity to broadcast from the new location over the weekend, I will. I just don't know yet. But if it's possible, I will. And I may end up broadcasting some pre-recorded live content over the weekend here on the channel, just so the chat room is active. It also offers an opportunity for newer viewers to jump in and see that content for the first time, and for you guys to hang out in the chat room. So don't feel offended or betrayed that something is airing live that was pre-recorded earlier. Understand that everything has reruns. As far as I know, I Love Lucy has been over for a long time, but I still see it on the TV every day. All right, don't get me started on another rant. I'll see y'all again very, very soon. Looking for my outro. There it is. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.